By the way, she like wrote this story just basically about like her being a loser and her being in love with the teacher, and that is everyone's reading it on the train. Like, what's going on here?
The 90s were a slow news time.
The 90s were a slow news time. This was pre 9/11. Okay. Hey everybody, welcome to Rom-Com Vom, a Sex Ed with DB podcast miniseries exploring popular rom-coms from the 90s and early aughts that gave us toxic messages about love and sex. Hello, gorgeous listeners. Hello, I'm so happy that you're here. This week, we are joined by sex edutainer, consultant, speaker, media personality, the dildo slinger herself, the incredible Dirty Lola. Hello, Dirty Lola.
Hi everyone.
Oh, I am so glad that you're here. How are you doing today?
I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Feeling good.
Yeah.
Feeling good. You're the best, and you've been on Sex Ed with DB before, and we are pals, and I'm just so excited to chat with you today. And I'm not even going to give it away yet. We're going to share last week's teaser before we get started. A babyface junior copywriter at the Chicago Sun-Times must pose as a student at her former high school to research contemporary teenage culture. With the help of her brother, she infiltrates the inner circle of the most popular clique on campus, but she hits a major snag in her investigation, not to mention her own failed love life when she falls for her dreamy English teacher. We're talking about Never Been Kissed today, Dirty Lola. How excited are you?
So excited. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
You mentioned this is one of your faves. Is that true?
It is. This Drew Barrymore had a chokehold on us in like the late
on all
90s.
of us in America.
Yeah. Yes. No. She made so many movies. Like the kids now know her for her Drew Barrymore show.
Her talk show. For her kind of hugging people on the couch.
Yeah. And like her, what was her whole, like she has makeup now, but we knew her as the wild child movie star dancing on David Letterman's desk. And then she started a production company and started making all of these like movies that spoke to awkward. If you were awkward.
Yes.
There was probably a movie. Yeah. She got you.
Completely. I'm so curious, like, as a kid for you, what was this movie like? Like, how did it impact you? What do you remember? Like, do you remember watching it when you were younger? Like, what does this movie mean to you?
Yeah, like 99 was the year I graduated from high school.
So this is so relevant for you.
Yeah, this was relevant. And I was always nerdy and awkward, but also not deterred by failure. I was thinking about this the other night because I'm like, yeah, I did a lot of stuff like the reading. Well, should I give it away? There's a part where she reads a poem.
Please,
she reads
give it
poem in the movie to her crush in the hopes that like, because she was Delulu, as the kids say, that
mega Delulu.
The poem would make this very popular boy fall in love with her. And I was Delulu like that. I'm like, if I make the most perfect mixtape or expression of love, some weird expression of love, they'll get it. They never got it, but it didn't stop me from being cringe. Like,
yes.
So the whole time I'm watching it, I was myself. And I was cooler, I will say. I was cooler, and I can say this because I was told later on, I was told I was cool, and I was like, well, I didn't know. And I think that's the best part about being cool is when you don't know that you're cool.
That's what makes you cool, is that you're unaware.
Yeah, but I was cooler than she was in high school, but I still was having that same, like, boys didn't openly like me. I was like that weird, I thought I was
alt girl.
Yeah, I was a raver. I wore wide legs and leia buns, and I was very into that aesthetic. I thought I was fat, but when I look back at photos, I was like, oh, the cheekbones on me. I was not at all fat. I was like,
still have amazing cheekbones.
I do, but I was like a 14, which is like so tiny. I look back and I'm like, oh, that girl felt so like not pretty and huge and all the things. And now I'm just like, look at you, baby. You were like smoking. Oh my God.
Beauty girl. I know. Yeah. We don't appreciate our beauty ever. It's just like this constant striving. You're really right about that.
So all those feelings come up when I watch that movie. It's like, I remember that like longing to want to belong and that doing cringe things
Yes. I know, I know. But we can't help it. All we want is to be loved by other people. And that's
Yes.
like, that is true Josie Geller in this film.
Yes.
I was a youth when I saw this movie. I genuinely felt like, because I was in elementary school when I saw it, I was kind of like, oh, wow, this is what it's like to be a cool girl in high school. Like when she gets with all the popular girls, and like really genuinely as a kid, I did not see a problem with her relationship with Sam Coulson, her English teacher. Insane name. Also, we'll get
Right.
into that. But yeah, I very much love this movie. I thought it was very funny. I thought it was silly. I thought that like we were very made very aware that like she is a loser, like when she was in high school, and the biggest nerd who got bullied, and somehow her brother Rob, played by David Arquette,
Who
gets her to be cool in high school while she has all this going on in the background at her job, right? So that's kind of like, yeah, I feel like now I do want to say kind of the setup here in case it's been a decade or two since you've seen it. Here's like a recap, right? We recently saw this for the rewatch, but sweet listener, you might not have seen this since 99 perhaps. So here we go. The movie stars Drew Barrymore as Josie Geller, a socially awkward copy editor who's sent undercover as a high school student to investigate teen culture. First of all, this is illegal. Like you can't just send in older. She's 25 and she's pretending to be a 17-year-old.
Unless you're a cop, as per 21 Jump Street, apparently. This is like
I do love that movie. Yeah, it's hilarious, but yeah, cue the cringy kind of flashbacks to her own high school days as a bullied outcast. And while Josie struggles to fit in, her brother Rob re-enrolls to help her, who's also like 23 and re-enrolls in high school for no reason other than to play baseball, which is like, okay, that's a lot to unpack. And sparks fly between her and her English teacher, ick, with the age difference and kind of the issues here. But Dirty Lola, why are we talking about this? I'll tell you why. Because even though we love it, Never Been Kissed is a rom-com that gives us some pretty twisted messages about love, consent, and boundaries. And so I would love to unpack with you.
Let's do it.
Problematic elements to see what this film really teaches us about romance, because it gets a lot of shit wrong. And so our major segment here is That's Problematic, where we're breaking down all the problematic elements. And let's start with the inappropriate teacher-student dynamic. Thoughts on this? Please tell me.
It was, in watching it, it's a lot of like, my brain's doing this dance, right? Because it's this movie I love. And I think when we were younger and watching it, you're like, oh, well, she's not really that age. So your suspension of belief, like and I'm sure this is how they crafted the movie for you to understand it. You're not immediately going to the ick because you're like, well, she's not really 16, 17. She's 25.
Exactly.
But when you're watching it, the whole time he's looking at someone he thinks is 17.
And he's crushing.
Not just like deep, like, I'm going to get on
falling in love with her.
Yeah. And was almost going to confess this. Remember? Like he was going to confess it.
Oh my God. On the dance floor.
Right.
First of all, when would teachers dance with their students at prom? When would they ever do that?
No,
That's illegal again.
It's illegal again. I mean, I went to a high school where we did have a teacher who slept with a student it was a whole scandal. And the thing was, we all knew about it. He tried with multiple students. I remember being rescued by a friend because when I had a book bag with all this crap on it, like buttons and stuffed animals. And he like pulled me by my book bag back into the room and was like, oh, let me see your bag. And my friend, this guy, just grabs my hand and goes, we gotta go. You're gonna be late for class.
Oh,
and
God.
I just remember like, thank you. And he would, like corral me and this other girl he was trying to always chat with, like to the side. And we knew she's like, why are we always in his sightline? I'm like, dude, I don't know.
Off about that. Oh,
but he was sleeping with a student and we knew, but it was like, it was this thing of like, well, it's a rumor and everybody's knowledge seemed to be like, well, somebody told me. I never found out from anyone who was like, I directly saw this. And then there was a whole bunch because they had gone to see Amistad. He he was our global history teacher, which and he was our AP global history teacher. So this is a college class.
Oh my God.
And we all failed that test because we didn't have a teacher for like 4 months because they got caught. The girl's parents found out. She was like a scholarship kid. And unfairly, like they took a lot of stuff away from her. And I don't think anything should have been taken away from her because
it's not her fault.
It wasn't. And she was taken advantage of by a grown man who didn't lose his job, who was suspended with pay, and who I found out after like I graduated, that he was teaching in another high school. Right.
Oh my God.
Right. And he was married and had a baby. Like this was primo crap going on.
Scandal alert.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
So watching this, I'm like, this is such the crap of like, you're still mature for your age. Like there's that point he even says like, are you sure you're 17? Because she knows definitions.
She's talking about Shakespeare.
But also I'm like,
she knows definitions.
She knows deep ass definitions of things. But that was the point. Well, even in that scene, I'm like, yes, that's totally 17-year-old me knew all kinds of shit because I was always trying to impress adults. So yeah, I would never not think somebody who was just like, the word promenade is blah, 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 blah. Like she does this a lot in the movie, y'all. If you want some vocabulary, she breaks down like word usage and the roots of words.
Because she's a goddamn writer.
She's a writer and she's a nerd. And so there was so much rewatching it that was just like, stop looking at her like that.
I know.
He's a child. Or you think she's a child
in your eyes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, it's so unfortunate because it is set up where it seems so innocent, right? Because he's not actively coming on to her. It's these like quiet little things where he's looking at her in a certain way, or he's about to tell her on the dance floor at prom, but he doesn't. And then at the end, right, before kind of the big finale and the big kiss, he's like at prom with her after she tells everyone that she's 25 and that she's blown her cover now.
Yeah.
And he is like, I just can't look at you the same. It's like, sir, you shouldn't have been looking at me like that when I was 17, and now you can. And that's what you're saying.
And she was saying, if you get to know me, and he's not. And I think the thing that got me about that was that at no point are you relieved. I mean, that she couldn't go through with the story, that she was setting you up. Like they kind of gloss over that he almost took the fall. And I will say that is a bit of where the movie redeems itself in this inappropriateness, is that the paper was like, he's the story. His inappropriate behavior is the story. Like they were going to make him the story, which ends up not happening. But so I was like, okay, there are adults who realize that she's not an adult. She's not a child. She's an adult. She's undercover. We're going to get this teacher who clearly is hitting on students.
It's being sketchy.
Right. And so they almost set him up to take this fall, and he was going to be smeared. And so I'm like, okay, I guess this was a little bit of the answer to that.
Right.
But yeah, there's just so much where he himself doesn't go like, shoo. I almost went down for being a pedophile. Like, it's not
truly.
There's none of that. There's none of that.
Oh my God. Okay. Also, like, moving on to another problematic element, right, of this fixation on the first kiss, right? Like, I took some notes when I was rewatching this movie, and basically she has a monologue that she's talking to fucking Octavia Spencer is also in this film, Oscar Award winner,
but not even the worst,
but just a side character,
and not even, she's so tertiary. And I am mad that this plus size character has 3 lunches at one point.
Correct. You're making a fantastic point. It's literally like Octavia Spencer, Molly Shannon, who's like the office slut, right? Which like she's a whole character that we could get into an entire episode about Molly Shannon's character, named Anita, by the way. Why does she have a Latin name when she isn't a white woman?
I feel like there's so many of these like Mr. Coulson, Anita, like I Need It,
Right.
Anita.
Oh, interesting.
The uncool teacher was Mrs. Knotts. So Mr. Coulson and Miss Knotts. Like,
wow.
There's so much wordplay happening in this movie.
You're naming some really intentional shit here that I didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
Wow, genius. Okay. So Josie's monologue, when she's talking about kissing someone for the first time.
Yeah.
She says, and you know that they're going to be the one that you kiss for the rest of your life. Like, okay, clearly this woman has not had a kiss, right? That's the entire name of the film, Never Been Kissed.
Yeah.
But it's so weird to me that there is this deep fixation on finding your love like in high school and then them being the only person you kiss forever. Like what do you think about this? What should we glean from this?
There's so much like purity shit in this because clearly she's a virgin also. If she's never kissed anybody, they never
very
name
clearly
it. They don't call her a virgin. They don't ever say the V word. They never allude to it, but like she can't put a condom on a banana, so we know she's never put one on a dick.
Yep.
She's like, there's a lot in all the way she talks about not having. She lies and says like, "I've kissed guys. It was just never perfect." But it's the waiting.
Don't believe you, girl.
No, yeah. And there's so much of the waiting, and then there's like when she's talking to the fellow student who's dating her inappropriately aged brother.
Yes.
And she's like, I want to have sex. And she starts telling her about penguins who wait. And I'm like, yeah, like, yes, tell her not to fuck the 23-year-old that she doesn't know is 23. But really, are we really going to sit here and this is like a veiled, like never have sex, movie? Like, it's just so much.
Very Christian,
very, I will say they did a bet like Molly Shannon. To make Molly Shannon the slut, I don't know if they were doing what they thought they were doing because I'm like, she's a very respectable slut. Like she only talks about, there's only like one guy they mentioned, like she's not with a bunch of different people. She says she was in the parking lot at prom. I mean, who wasn't? She wears a lot of like satin dresses with
short
lace.
Skirts.
But it's not very, like, honestly, she's wearing for the time kind of demure, like they're V-necks, but no titty. Like she had no real cleavage. I'm like, what kind of slut is she? Even her see-through moments, they were very lined. And I'm like, y'all did a really bad job.
You're like, she's a buttoned up slut.
Yeah.
She needs to be more slutty.
If we're doing this, do it.
Welcome to Two Black Girls, One Rose,
a podcast discovering what we can learn about modern dating, love, and relationships from popular television. I'm Natasha.
And I'm Justine.
We're best friends and TV fanatics, and every week on our podcast, we're recapping all of your faves, from reality shows like Love is Blind and The Bachelor to classics like Sex and the City.
Each week, we recap the latest episode while discussing topics like, is friendship or passion a better foundation for a relationship? And should we be dating men in their 20s?
We both spent our 20s dating all around New York City, so we've got a lot of relatable mess and stories to share.
Listen to us on all podcast platforms, and for bonus and video content, join us on Patreon.
The last bucket I have here are these workplace dynamics. Yeah. So let's like deeply get into this because
oh my God.
You have John C. Reilly's character who's just like the yelling boss. And very clearly, he's like the man in charge, right? And like there's a lot of fucked up gender shit here and sexist stuff at play because Anita is the office slut. Octavia Spencer's eating 3 lunches. Like she's literally just serving as kind of like the fat side character.
The fat, black, sassy lady.
The fat, black, sassy side character who like barely has any lines. And then you have Josie, who clearly is like one of the best writers there, but is very much not respected.
Yeah.
And she only gets this writing job because this like psychotic boss's boss, the like older dude with a cane who's just like firing people left and right.
It's Gary Marshall. It's
Gary Marshall. Wasn't he like Mr. Magoo or something?
Gary Marshall, is Penny Marshall's cousin, and he was the one who is responsible for Pretty Woman. He's a director. He gave us Pretty Woman, another problematic fave. And
we should have done that this season. Maybe next season.
Next season. Invite me back.
Definitely.
I also love that one. Yeah. But he has it. Like, I don't get the cane, Gary Marshall, unless he needed it during filming. But it's a lot of unhinged yelling. He's firing people. The only thing
like
that felt
asking Josie if her name is Jose.
Yeah.
Jose.
But the only thing that felt not like, I was like, again, they do all this stuff. And then there's this one thing where like, okay, Josie had a male secretary. He didn't respect her.
Not at all.
But she had one. Like he was this, I don't even know. Was he, he wasn't hot. He's the guy. He's the guy from the,
he's the goof.
He's the goof. And he's the guy from the milk commercial that answers Aaron Burr and his mouth is full of peanut butter.
That's right. I just learned about this commercial recently and
he was also in Fright Night.
You're an encyclopedia. I'm like, you're like me, dude. You're like me. I'm like that too. And everyone's like, okay, freak.
Yeah, like why do you know
That's how I love, this is what we should honestly do trivia together because I feel like this is very relevant. I'm just like, oh, this person was in this movie and this person was in that movie. Yeah, I'm just like that. I love
But he's not,
like
so they had this not hot, broy, like he's talking about, like he's just, I don't know, he's supposed to be young, hip business. I guess
he's talking about business tactics.
But he's also doing it as like a younger person in the 90s, like a 20-something in the 90s. This is the picture they're trying to paint of it. So he's her underling, but no respect for her. Like no, And I don't think at any point shows her respect, even. No.
Very, very much. I mean, like maybe even later though, like, you know, there's this like weird club moment where like all of these students are at this club and she like eats a pop brownie and she gets up on stage and she's dancing and that I don't even know what to do with that whole thing. But basically her secretary is just like, oh yeah, that's my boss.
But
gross.
What club was letting 17-year-olds in with 25-year-olds? Like
the old,
because how old was the teachers? The teachers going to also the teachers at a bar. I feel like teachers and therapists should share rules. Like you're not supposed to be out if
don't
you see
do that
each other
with your students.
No,
yes, exactly.
Like he's at a bar where students frequent, which his girlfriend, who's supposed to be a bitch and kind of is, points out, she's like, I hope you grow out of this because like I know you like this, but like why do you like this? This is a young
she's just supposed to, oh my god, this girlfriend is just supposed to serve as like a we hate her because we want him to end up with Josie, but like she is a well-respected like hot lawyer who's moving to New York for her career.
He never officially breaks up with her, like they never talk about her again, and he was packing to move at the end. So it's like, did you call her before you went to kiss Josie and tell her that you were breaking up with her? Or
I mean, this is the hope. Okay. And before we move on here, we got to talk about the last scene actually, because the whole thing kind of sets up for the baseball field kind of extravaganza where they invite all of these reporters to cover Josie's story. Yeah. By the way, she like wrote this story just basically about like her being a loser and her being in love with the teacher. And that is everyone's reading it on the train. Like what's going on here?
The 90s were slow news time.
The 90s were slow news time. This was pre 9/11. Okay. Yeah. And like, basically, she asks Mr. Coulson to meet her on the mound. She gives him 5 minutes on the clock. He's fucking late. He rolls in there like a minute late. She's crying on the mound. And then all of a sudden, everyone starts cheering because they see him and they have this big grand kiss. Yeah. Okay. Dirty Lola, what are we to make of this?
Oh my God. It is such a... There's so many folds in this map. But the main one is like, again, with the purity. Like if you wait, good things come to you. You'll eventually get it. Like there was so much. This is why I was cringe because, and it wasn't this movie because this was like in line with me leaving high school, but not John Waters, that's a whole separate part of my life, but all the like Pretty in Pink and all those movies set me up to believe that if I just showed someone my sparkling personality, people, like if I could really let people see me, someone would love me, right? Because she's not any cooler at the end of this movie. She's still a fucking dork. She's just, but everyone's
different
fallen
clothes,
in love.
Different hair.
Right. Well, also now everybody's read this article, which apparently is supposed to be this like blockbuster piece she's written.
Right.
Which I'm like, in New York, this would have been a 1-page in the fold, middle of the paper thing. Like, good job. Okay. Would not be a front page story. Does not trump finding teens the like abandoned drive-in where teens do drugs and have sex story that got like a little square in another paper, but this like I'm a loser and I'm in love with this teacher and I went under the cover.
Full front page.
There's just so much in this of like where you're just like, huh. When you watch it,
something's off here.
Yeah, and the way he kisses her, I'm like, okay, at least it was a passionate kiss, and he's not grossed out because she's 25, like Leonardo DiCaprio would be.
That girl would be out on his roster.
He'd
at
be
25.
like, "You're 25. Oh no, here's your bag.
I'm done. Let's look for the 19-year-old." Yeah, no, you're totally right about the purity thing. I do think it's like teaching us as the viewer, right? Like whether you watch this when you were 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, and when you rewatch it, you realize that like we are set up as young girls and women in particular to feel like this is the only way that we're going to be able to get the kind of romance that we want is by doing these grand gestures and all of these huge things that are completely not real, right? Which is why that they are in these kinds of movies. But it is important for us to rewatch them later to realize the kind of shit and rewiring that it put us through as young people.
We have to humiliate ourselves. Like, honestly, that it's like you get love when you put yourself through the ringer, when you put yourself on Front Street. You have to be the most vulnerable. Like, can you imagine like waiting for somebody to come kiss you in that moment? Like, and I knew he was going to show up. Even the first time I saw this, I knew they weren't going to end the movie without him showing up. But it was just such this thing of like, why do I have to be a fucking open wound to be loved? And this motherfucker just gets to show up.
Yes.
Just gets to show up. Yeah, that's it. She didn't even put his name in the article. He gets to be anonymous. She doesn't say Mr. Coulson in the article. She just says this teacher. So he gets full anonymity. So if he never shows up, nobody ever would know it was him. You know, like why do men get to be anonymous in the shenanigans and we have to be our most vulnerable public selves in order to be loved? And it persists.
Dirty Lola, I cannot even with you with the way that you speak. That is so real and so true. Like she is putting her whole fucking self on the line, and it's just for her to have this like fantastic first kiss, which again, it is a very good first kiss.
Yeah, I mean, it was passionate. It was very passionate. Like he grabbed her. He didn't even pause. Like he didn't even say words to her.
No, he just went right in,
grabbed her. He was like, "Sorry, I'm late." After he was sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we're supposed to forgive him, which we do.
We do. We're like, oh, well, he made it and it's great. And yeah.
Oh, gosh. Dirty Lola, we only have a couple more segments left, but this next one is called The Cringe Corner, where we give out a Yikes Bikes Award. Literally, we've given out a Yikes Bikes Award thank you so much for appreciating this. Every single episode this season, we give out a Yikes Bikes Award based on this film. Literally, when she's in the cafeteria, rattling off all these things when she's still a loser before her brother comes to save her and just says, "Yikes, bikes." And literally the cool guy says, "Are you in special ed?" Like there's so many problematic things here, but we have a Yikes Bikes Award to the most cringeworthy or outrageous line in this movie. And I'll go first and I'll let you think on it. But my Yikes Bikes Award goes to when her brother looks at a picture of the girls in high school in the paper and says, "Damn, these are high school girls. We have some underage hotties on our hands."
Oh my God.
Pedophile.
So much. Also, they do, the guys at the newspaper too kind of have that moment as well of like, oh, this was high school girls.
Ooh, like hotties.
I don't mind not necessarily lines, but the moment at prom when her brother, again, this all belongs to Rob. He's getting everything.
Yes.
The theme for prom is great couples. I will say some of these kids had some banging ideas, like all the nerds show up as DNA because they don't have dates. It was great. Lelia Sobieski, great in this movie.
Oh my God.
But Rob is Tom Cruise in Risky Business, which means his date is who? Rebecca De Mornay, who played a sex worker, and she's dressed as Rebecca De Mornay's character.
Oh my God, I never clocked that.
Yes, so the bangs, the fur, like he brings a 16-year-old girl, she's 16, 17, dressed as a sex worker. He's wearing a button-down shirt, underwear, and socks.
Underwear.
That is his prom outfit. He doesn't put on pants, and he's at this. But they're sitting. So this is the frame: them sitting at a table, and this girl's confessing that she wants to have sex with him, and she puts her leg up over her head because she's a gymnast. And he's commented on this girl being both 16 and a gymnast so many times.
Oh my God!
And thankfully, he had the like humility in the moment, or just whatever, to like get up and be like, wait, okay, maybe not, because she admits that she wants to give him her virginity. But that was such a yikes spikes where she's at a table dressed as a sex worker, probably doesn't even know who she's dressed as, because these kids it's the 90s and they probably didn't watch Risky Business. He's older, and she's putting her foot behind her head at the table.
Bad.
That was my yikes spikes. Yes. That for me was just like, what the fuck?
Bad. Wow. Really fantastic yikes spikes.
Yeah.
That really takes the cake.
Yeah.
And with that, we are going to rate this movie, Dirty Lola.
Ooh, okay.
1 to 5 voms. 1 vom is dated, but still love it.
Okay.
And 5 voms is like, can never watch it again. Okay. What are you rating this movie?
I'm torn. I'm going to give it a 3.
Me too.
Yeah.
That's exactly the rating that I would give.
Yes.
Okay, explain your rating.
For me, the 3, because it is dated, but it's solidly a 90s movie. So it doesn't feel like my expectation in going back and watching 90s movies. They're very like, I know this is going to look a certain way. It's going to feel a certain way. I'm in here. They're not really racist, which, there's a lot of racism.
Thank God.
And for all the things that they do, there's always this little sparkle of like, we're going to try to make it like, oh, she has a male secretary, and we're going to frame the teacher who rightfully should be fucking framed for being a pedophile. And we're going to, there's always this little bit of like, yes, but there's
awareness.
Little bit of awareness. And that there is guilt. Everybody feels guilty. And I think that is the thing that keeps it from going above a 3, is that even the teacher, Mr. Coulson feels guilty for being like, you can see it. He honestly, this actor did really good in the look of guilt he feels that he is falling in love with a underage
He knows it.
Child. He knows it. Rob feels guilty about, and like, is like, oh, wow, yeah.
Not guilty enough.
Not guilty enough. Not guilty enough to not go to prom and dress his date like a sex worker, but guilty enough to like realize like, oh, I shouldn't take this girl's virginity while she thinks I'm also a 17-year-old boy. And yeah, there's a lot of like enough guilt to make it not feel like it should be 5 voms. And I would definitely watch it again through the same lens. Like watching it today was enjoyable, and it was a lot of the cringe was just mostly like remembering how cringe I was.
Yes.
And
oh
some
my
of the
God.
and just some
excavated.
of the and some of the comments, but I think because of how, like you said, it felt very the whole purity part of it, all the things that could have been wildly out of hand, they kept it from being wildly out of hand. Like Molly Shannon's sluttiness didn't
totally.
Yeah, things
they
like that.
Kind of put a cap on things.
Right.
Yes, I totally hear you. Yeah, I love this movie. I will probably watch it every year for the rest of my life. But still sketchy dynamics. You know, there's a lot that could have improved. And I think, it's just such a fantastic rom-com to critique because we love it so much.
Yeah.
So Dirty Lola, thank you so much for being here. It has been such an honor and a pleasure. Dear listeners, please rate and review us if you like this episode. It makes a huge difference for indie podcasters like me. And I'm going to tease the next episode, which is going to be our final episode of Rom-Com Bomb coming out next week. Here's the teaser. A how-to columnist embarks on a wild mission to drive a man away in just 10 days for a magazine article. Enter an ad exec who's made a bet that he can make any woman fall in love with him in 10 days. The result? A hilarious battle of wits and romantic chaos as both of them unknowingly play each other, leading to laugh-out-loud moments, misunderstandings, and unexpected, of course, chemistry. Dirty Lola, thank you so much for being on. I love you.
Thanks for having me.